Bienvenido al podcast oficial de nuestro equipazo en Filantropía Puerto Rico, Somos Filantropía. Estas conversaciones profundizan, visibilizan y amplifican los esfuerzos que adelantan la equidad dentro del ecosistema social de Puerto Rico. Nuestros invitados compartirán sus perspectivas sobre temas sociales desde sus experiencias y especialidades. Así que busca un espacio cómodo, sírvete un café de aquí, claro está, y danos oído.
Saludos y bienvenidos a otro episodio de Somos Filantropía. Hoy cambiamos a inglés. So welcome friends and thanks for being here and joining another episode. Today we are joined with Kinyta Smalls, Executive Director of Peter Alfond Foundation. Kinyta, welcome.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be here.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. I'd like to start right off the bat with, tell us a little bit about the Peter Alfond Foundation.
Sure.
Because I think many of our listeners might not know the Peter Alfond Foundation. So if you could tell us a little bit about the story and probably how they came to invest and be interested in supporting Puerto Rico.
Sure. So the Peter Alfond Foundation was founded in 1994 by Peter Alfond himself. He comes from the Alfond family, who are the creators of Dexter Shoe Company. If you go to Maine, you'll see quite a few buildings and or other community resources that are sponsored by the Harold Alfond Foundation. So Peter himself grew up with a strong legacy of philanthropy and consciousness around giving back. The Dexter Shoe Company had factories on the north coast of Puerto Rico, which Peter was president over for a while.
Okay.
And as such, Peter ended up living on the island for many years, and his 4 children grew up here at different stages of their lives. And so there was a real attachment to Puerto Rico.
Right. Yeah, I remember these Dexter shoes.
Yes.
They were like school shoes.
Yeah.
School shoes.
That's how I remember them too.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to Catholic school.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure I had at least 2 pair. So it's hilarious that now I'm here doing this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And how did you, so that was his beginning, and then he kind of went into philanthropy, and the kids kind of
so
got involved.
Very sad. So basically, Peter started his foundation in 94. He made investments in the wellness space. That was always something really important to him personally. One of his very large investments, if you will, was in the center called Kripalu in the Maine area.
Yes, I know Kripalu.
Yes,
absolutely.
And so that kind of became a bit of a personal trademark. In Puerto Rico, a lot of Peter's giving was influenced by his employees, seeing some of the needs and gaps that existed in education.
Right.
So there were like early small grants made along that line. He was continuing to kind of desarrollar, his philanthropy in Puerto Rico. One of the areas in which he was very key was in early thought partnering and being a builder, a bridge builder for Vimenti School. The family has a long history with Boys and Girls Club. And so Peter was on what they call the Legacy Council for the Boys and Girls Club, and there became a part of really pivotal talks around what it would look like to create this Alianza school, which would serve as a 2-generational model to support families in coming out of poverty.
Yeah, mobilizing them.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. And I know Kripalu, I've done several yoga retreats and meditation retreats there.
So
it's amazing to see that,
that full circle for you.
Yeah, a donor of that wellness kind of institution.
So sadly, in 2017, Peter died. He passed away at the age of 65.
Oh,
and
at the beginning of 2017?
I think it was right before the hurricane. I believe it was July of 2017.
Wow.
He contracted malaria after having gone on a safari in Africa. And so his 4 children took over leadership of the foundation, and they contracted the company that I actually work for, which is Intentional Philanthropy, based in Bethesda, Maryland. And they're a small foundation management company that provides various levels of foundational support. And one of the things that I love about the Alfond Foundation, which also radically changed my life and opened a door for me to come back to Puerto Rico, was that the children, as well as the independent trustees, were very interested in the work kind of having a bottom-up approach. So once the foundation launched officially in 2019, early grants were being made, but the real strategy work, they wanted someone on the ground.
Right.
And for a number of reasons, it worked out to where they ended up hiring me. I have a background in education.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how did you end up in this work?
So it's interesting, you know, I look at it from different angles. I think personally and where I was in my life, I was looking to return to Puerto Rico. My mom's Puerto Rican, my dad's African American. I lived in Puerto Rico from 6 to 9, so my first literate language is actually Spanish. And then over the summers I would come back. So there was always that connection. After Maria, like every Puerto Rican, it was like the bat signal, like we've got to come back. And I was in bilingual education, and I was seeing how many of our children were coming stateside and were still struggling to read in Spanish, and their language deficits or their language differences were being kind of processed as learning disabilities. So we had a disproportionate number of children that were going into special education. So as a bilingual and then later English as second language teacher, I became very interested in understanding what was happening. I'm like, I learned to read in Spanish, so I know it's doable. Some of the smartest, most brilliant people I know are Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico exports talent more than any other place I know. So it's not that people can't learn, right? There's a disconnect, and I became very interested in that. So in 2018, I actually came with my husband, who's American, to see if he could live here. So that was happening in my world.
It's like, honey, let's see.
Yeah, we
so
did.
is your mother here?
Yes.
Is she like?
She is.
Oh,
she is.
great.
My mom is here.
And your family?
And my family is in Mayagüez. And so I get to go there and see them when I'm here.
Awesome.
So the work, you know, brought me back. Basically, things just kind of came at the right time. I was ending my career as a director for a charter network in New Jersey and Philadelphia, and decided I was ready to do something different. And what I had in mind is I was going to sit in the corner of a classroom in Puerto Rico and teach reading. Like that was what I had decided to do.
The purpose is the same. You're always about serving, but you kind of.
I was really trying to like crack the code, you know. And at the same time, I had a dear friend who was friends with the president of Intentional Philanthropy, Holly Rivera, who you've met.
Yes.
And basically, she and Holly were talking, and my good friend comes to me. She says, Kinyta, there's this role that has your name written on it, but I know you don't do grants, but everything else is you. And one thing led to another. And my husband and I were really ready for a change.
Yeah.
So in August of 2020, we decided to sell our very large home, our cars, half of our furniture. And within a month, I had moved to Puerto Rico.
What a risk.
So it felt so
and at
like
a time.
like the way things came together, and that in such a short time, I mentioned
everything flowed.
That size and such to say like it was a really big undertaking, but it felt right, and everything just kind of worked. And so we landed here, and it was amazing of being able to come back and come with resources to help support work that I already really was invested in.
And how do you like working in philanthropy?
You know, it's an area I struggled to say the word. Like I remember I made a video for friends when I got here. I was like, I'm in like, ni podía decir la palabra. I mean, so it was such a far
and nobody understands anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're in the
unless
sector.
you come from that, you know, that level of affluence, or if you're in the sector. So for me, philanthropy has been a real breath of fresh air. I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm excited for what you do, because I do feel as though it is one of our strong avenues to keep a lot of our talent here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunity in that space to make change. And I think it's a really special, sweet spot that those of us who get to work in are very fortunate.
Yeah.
You know, it brings together so many interests for me, and I can see for others. It's a place where if you're an engineer, but you have a big heart for your island, you can work. If you're an educator, but you're also interested in creating ecosystems, which would be more me, then there's space. It brings together so many skill sets, and you're never bored. Unfortunately, there's never a lack of need, and you're always having to be creative with how to maximize the resources that your foundation has.
Definitely.
So I think it's a real privilege that we have to work in this space.
And I love it. And now I'm getting more ideas of connecting you with your background and the work that you do. Do you really get involved very much like in this? I know you have two focuses, but in this educational, since this is your background so much.
Yeah, I don't know
do
if my
cause
grantees
problems getting so involved?
I do.
Like, Kinyta, let us do.
I do, but thankfully, most of the people I've spoken with have received my well intentions and have heard things from me that have been beneficial. And so I do feel, so another piece of the work I get to do in the way in which the Peter Alfond Foundation wants to give to Puerto Rico is, you know, we give dollars, but a part of my role was also fashioned to allow me to be a support in areas where I have expertise.
Right.
And so a good number of our grantees, in addition to dollars, have been connected to resources stateside, have been connected to each other, but also because we have this bottom-up approach, there's been a significant investment in coaching our leaders, our partners, our grantees, in how do you make a case for your work? And that's something that I've been able to do.
Yeah.
Somehow that's a gift I picked up or a skill set that has kind of merged together from my experiences. And I think that's where I've been able to really give input, and it's paid off. I've been able to see, you know, really early nascent groups be able to evolve and very clearly articulate their mission and be able to make a case for their work. Whereas when we first met, they were so in the weeds doing the work, which is what attracted me to them, that someone in a different space and from a different background may not have appreciated the work had it not been formatted a little differently. So that's something I'm very grateful I get to do, and that there's space in my schedule for me to be able to engage in.
That's the fun part, I'm sure.
It really is.
Yeah, but it's a very refined capacity building. It's like you're supporting in the professionalizing these organizations. And since you have all this background, you kind of tell them, you know, this is the perspective you probably need to hit and things like that.
From an asset approach, you know, it isn't a valuation of which way is better. It's I really look at it as another language. Like this, what you do is amazing, and who you are is amazing. Now we need to package it in the language of an investor, in the language of someone that isn't in this world.
Yeah. So you're not missing the teaching.
Bueno. Yeah, you know, I think at this point, I missed it for a long time. I won't lie. I really did. No, I'm not. I think, though, I'm more impassioned and committed than ever, though, to help be a part of the solution and to learn what that means. You did such an amazing job bringing us great statistics and helping us to understand kind of broadly what was happening in education in Puerto Rico, and hearing that roughly 1 in 100 third graders are reading proficiently. Like, I can't be okay with that. Yeah. So whatever you call that, whether it's I miss teaching or like, that part will never be okay with me. And I've been in conversations during the convening that you had this year in October, and even just today with some leaders in the field, like, okay, what are we doing? You know, how are we moving this, regardless of what the political context is? Like, what are we doing? Yeah. And so that will never change for me.
That's great. So tell me a little bit, give me more details of how you do philanthropy.
Sure. So
I know you have some focus areas, and
Yeah.
Walk us a little bit through of how you
Sure.
how you do
So, like I shared, Peter's,
especially not being here.
yeah, yeah,
A
the
foundation
moment.
that is not, you're here, but
yeah,
I mean, like the institution is like not here. That it always
Yeah.
helps to have that infrastructure.
yeah,
Just wondering, because you seem to be very much like a thought partner with your grantee
Grantees,
partners.
yeah.
So how are you so close?
Sure.
How do you continue those relationships
Yeah.
and work them? Tell us a
Well,
little bit.
a few things. One is that, Rebecca Alfond, Peter's eldest daughter, she lived here on the island, and, her children are part Puerto Rican, is a homeowner here, and is very much still involved and connected. So there were personal connections for the trustees themselves. Another of our founding trustees lived on the island full time at the time. So the foundation was very much careful to include leadership at the board level that was directly connected to Puerto Rico. And then I moved here for 2.5 years. So that gave me a great opportunity. And so now going forward, how do we kind of keep our ear to the ground? I think it's interesting and it's evolving, right? Because being here in person and, going to every event I could, reading, making connections, and just loving people and loving the work I got to do, I was able to meet a lot of the leaders in, the agriculture space as well as in education. And so those relationships are maintained in part, now that I'm no longer here full time. They're maintained, obviamente, through Zoom calls. So there's that. But they're also maintained because we now have an advisory board, and on our advisory board, we have a commitment to keeping. It's kind of our funnel for our board. And so we make a commitment to bring onto our advisory board individuals who live in Puerto Rico and understand the context.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, every year the board comes to Puerto Rico. And when they come, I've been able to throw a really big party and invite all of the stakeholders and whatever that year's focus is. And so that continues to build the enmeshment, if you will, between the top leadership, the staff, and the ecosystem. So it's a mixture. And it's great. I think going forward, I'm no longer here full time. So we're now contracting a consulting firm on the island to help support with some of the on the ground work and touch points that are made. But I'm here about 2 months of the year. So,
you're here a lot, and still. And I was more curious on when you came in at the beginning. Like how do you create those relationships? I mean, because you had layers of layers. You coming in, your husband coming in, and then kind of cold calling organizations. And how easy was it for you too? And connecting with other peers, philanthropic peers, that they could tell you this and that. But then, voy a las Marias, and you take a car for 2 hours and finding the project. Then this was 2019. Well, you came in 2020, so we were earthquakes. I mean, we were like running, earthquakes, and then COVID hit. So you were like
locked in my apartment with a mask on,
trying to create relationships.
That's a great question.
So I'm wondering how easy was it for you?
That's a great question. So I inherited a good number of relationships. In 2019, before I came, there was a convening in Puerto Rico where a number of leaders.
Oh yeah, I went to that. The education philanthropic roundtable. Was that?
That's right.
Yeah.
And that was the unofficial launch. And so at that roundtable, Holly, along with 2 of my colleagues, Daniel Aste, who you've met.
I met Holly and I met Rebecca in that
as well. And then another colleague, Laurel Dumont. They were early, like kind of on the ground. So from that roundtable, a number of projects were identified. In addition to that, I'd inherited the Vimenti project, like I said, that Peter had been key and as a thought partner and a connector for.
Wow.
So when I come in September of 2020 to my first board meeting, I'd inherited this, slate of grants that allowed me to begin to learn the ecosystem. Going forward, there were also relationships that trustees had. Jairo Estrada was key in connecting me to some of the relationships that he had on the island. So there was that, and that allowed for a lot of learning. So our first year and a half, I would say, was around a lot of, involved a lot of learning.
Yeah.
Then for myself, coming here again, having connection to the island, I felt very passionate about finding the people who were doing the work before Maria, because I understood that there are those who speak the King's language that show up when opportunity arises, and they're able to capture resources ahead of those whose hands are in the dirt, in the work, that don't have the ability to present themselves in a way that maybe puts them at the front of the line.
Yeah.
And so I committed.
Or their focus is different.
They're just
people.
They're
doing
the work.
And when you're in crisis, you're even more in it.
I mean, have you looked at?
So you don't look at.
I always know who is involved in their work. You look at their LinkedIn page; it's a mess. Like you look at my LinkedIn page; it's a hot mess. I am busy working. I do not have time to tell you about my work because I'm busy doing it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's true.
Similarly, I wanted to find those folks.
Right.
So some of the things that helped. So I had inherited this, really robust grant slate. I had, the resources that came through some of our trustees. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
And then, you just have to be a little nosy and a little curious. And so I remember one of my first forays was at Barista Square, the coffee shop here in Condado.
Yeah.
I walked in and I said, okay, show me your coffees that are 100% from Puerto Rico. And there was one. And so I ordered the coffee, I bought the bag, and I called the phone number on the back and answered Sandra Farms.
Wow. That
Israel
was
from Sandra Farms.
Really cold calling.
I went into the grocery store and I looked for products that had made in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And one of the products was amasar.
Yeah.
I called the number and Marisol answered the phone.
Yeah.
And so that really, was one of my approaches, was just, I wanted to know from the bottom up. I didn't want someone fancy talking me about things. I wanted to see what Puerto Ricans were telling me, what Puerto Rico was telling me. And so I me tiré así. Then the foundation decided they were interested in kind of what we now would say is nutrition in the food system. And that was a whole new field for me. I mean, I came in for education and then we kind of added this other piece. So I had to do a lot of research. And I remember trying to wrap my brain around agroecology. And I just started Googling. And I remember finding a video on YouTube of this young lady, and she's talking and she's all soft spoken and she's like laying down, and then she gets up and I'm like, what? And I kind of want to turn the page, and it ended up being one of our top grantees. The more I listened, I was like, wow, this person like really knows what they're talking about. I don't know this information, but I'm understanding it through them. And so it's just, so that was, and then I would go to events and I would pick up books and look at the back, and that's how I found Pro Cafe. Call the number and someone picked up. And so it really was this kind of combination of things. And I'm really excited because I think we have a really solid group of people that we now support. And we're at the stage coming into our 5th year of grant making in Puerto Rico, where we're refining. And what I was able to share at the convening was about this kind of approach we have to go deeper with some organizations and really make a commitment to them, regardless of what, the stock market is doing and what our yearly budget is. We needed a way, if we really wanted to make impact, to follow that up with some processes that safeguarded our support to some of our key partners, which is what we call them, our priority partners. So that's kind of how it happened and where we are today.
I appreciate it very much how you in our convening, you were sharing your strategy and the priority and that little space that you leave for whatever comes. And I think it was really, it's a really good, transparent, clear framework and simple of grant making. So you have two focus. So it'd be education and then agriculture, but it's really like kind of wellness agriculture. So tell us a little bit more about those.
So we're in the process of refining both.
Because education is huge.
It is huge, yeah, for sure. And you were really helpful. You supported our board meeting this year where we kind of went into that a little more al grano. So currently, we're currently working with a third party to refine our theory of change, our problem statement and theory of change. But where we are today is we understand that our interest in education is really around youth thriving. And so supporting conditions that allow children in Puerto Rico to thrive. And so obviously we support K-12 through our support with Vimenti and Caras. But we also support out of school time that provide enrichment to students that help give them some of that trasfondo, right? That gives them the background they need so that the information they're learning has a place to be deposited. If I don't have an exposure to ideas beyond my physical experience, then new information is really hard to land.
And so you don't see it.
You don't see it. And so you're busy trying to make meaning and it never really becomes a part of your toolkit. So out of school time is so important that way. One of the examples is Manta in Vieques, which is an amazing environmental program. They also teach about food and nutrition. And so that's an example of that. Or Cortez Foundation that does amazing social emotional work, supporting youth, using art to help youth identify their feelings and develop language to be able to express and manage themselves, just as a couple of examples. So in education, we really are around youth thriving, and we're continuing to refine what that means and really look forward to hopefully coming back next year. And I know we talked about maybe coming back with Rebecca to really kind of define that more, but so that's an exciting path to be on. And then in agriculture, it really is more around nutrition. It's the idea that with a Puerto Rico that imports 85 to 90% of its food, and what that means for the offerings that are available in the store, does that equate great nutrition? Does that equate to food that is authentic to the Puerto Rican history and palate? And so that was the work that I got to really throw myself into through farmer convenings. I spoke with over 100 farmers in various parts of the island, as well as families, and was able to understand.
Tastings.
Oh boy, I have to say that has been such a joy of my job. It's going
like, can we taste?
Oh man, that I will not even lie. Like that is hands down the cherry on the top. So when we say agriculture, again, we're in this process of really defining what we mean. And what we're finding we mean is connecting Puerto Rico to its authentic palate, connecting Puerto Rico to nutrient dense foods, and allowing Puerto Rico to feed itself, not just in the case of an emergency, but in a way that supports and uplifts its food system. And I guess, one of the things I can add there, as one coming from the outside, one of the real treats was finding how dense and rich the leadership in agriculture and the food system is. Some of the most kick-butt leaders on the island that I have met are in the food system space. And so that was another special part of the work. And really leadership, I guess I could round this off with saying that really is kind of how the foundation has taken its lead on its grant making. They look within these areas of focus, but when they identify leadership that is busy at the work that they can come alongside and accelerate, that's kind of where they've decided to go deeper. And I really appreciate that about our board, that they've really allowed the leadership to take lead, because, you know, I love saying hustle knows hustle.
Right.
I know when I'm speaking to someone that's
Yeah.
doing the work as opposed to talking about the work,
Yeah.
you know, because, you know, I've
Yeah.
had to work hard in my life.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that's the only way. The point being is I feel like we've been able to identify people who've really been working hard
Yeah.
for what they believe in. And it feels so good to support their leadership, to support them with general operating funds, to support them with funds to contract a third party to create better structures in their organization, to support them with increasing salaries. You know, we've been able to increase salaries of our key partners about 27%. We feel proud about that.
I mean, that's what philanthropy should do, because this is like money to risk and to expand and to like amplify whatever, you know, those efforts that are being there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a cherry on the top.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it looks like you really bet on leadership.
On people.
On people.
Yeah.
Yeah, wherever you see like shining, you go and it's like,
maybe not shining, but
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
translate.
No,
Tú sabes como que
sí, claro, sí,
el hustle.
yeah.
Hustle means hustle.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, that's my way of saying it.
Yeah.
But that's what, and someone else would have done the work differently and maybe landed in a similar place. But because of who I am, when I see someone and I can tell they are in it,
right,
then I'm like, I want to know you. And I want the board to know you. And that's how I think that's really been also how the relationships have grown. It's because it's like, I want my board to know you. I don't just want to be the one to know you. I don't want to stifle your exposure.
Yeah.
You know?
So how do you see the sector, more the funder sector in Puerto Rico? And have you seen any changes? I mean, in the small time, and I say it because we were in critical time, crisis. Now it seems we're not so much in crisis. So I'm wondering if you've seen a change.
Yeah.
And then how do you see us as a sector?
Sure.
You can be honest.
Yeah, no. If I'm really honest, I really have been that person with my head in the sand doing my work.
Right.
And so my relationships at that level do need to develop. You know, obviously, Baby Jaunarena has been a mentor, a friend, a thought partner. And so we work together quite a bit. And her role actually inspired the foundation to create what is now my role. So, you know, that's been a really great partnership. And so,
a side note, I loved it. You guys at the convening, I love people that engage, you know, and like, so the two of you, like, you have a question? You have a question? You two, okay, let me.
We'll always have a question.
I know, I love it, because you're in it, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
You know, I think I'm getting to understand the sector, and you've helped me do that. I mean, but I've also seen beautiful work. Like I was really inspired by the work of Alexandra
Hertel,
Segara
Borman,
Segara Borman, 2 years ago at one of our convenings, like she gave me some of the language I needed to start bringing trust-based approaches to the foundation. And I feel so inspired and like motivated by their example. You know, looking at Banco Popular and meeting young business owners and seeing the opportunities they've brought. So I love that the sector is really here and showing up for the people.
Yeah.
And I would love the world to know that. You know, I really want that to be amplified more so that Puerto Rico can really be seen more fully. I think that, you know, this latest collaboration between some of the foundations with Flamboyant, Colibri, Titin, Segarra Bowman, I think I forget who the others are, so I'm not going to overspeak, but they're looking todos a leer to help move reading forward. I think that's really exciting. I think the potential that lies in collaborating together to move the needle it seems to me that that's where we're positioned, and I hope we go in that direction because, you know, we're going to be here pretty much, regardless of who's in office. Many of us live here. And so I feel as though we are the right place for, you know, like you said, change to be sparked, to be innovated, and then to hopefully be caught up through the systems that exist in you know, in the government. So yeah, I think that I've been very impressed and very inspired by what I've seen, but I do wonder, how do we move the needle forward more? Because there are some amazing leaders in these foundations.
Yeah.
I mean, there are no slouches. And so I you know, I would love to see us really partner up more and really target an issue, a problem area, or something to solve or create, and really see some real momentum that we can point to and say, together we did that.
Yeah. And I think I always ask this question, but I think we're ready. We're kind of ready for that. And I mean, you said, oh, you know, I've been with my head down, but I mean, we've been coming from some times that we were all doing that.
Yeah.
Because as people that are in the sector, that you're kind of want to serve and be there and support, and there has been so many things happening one after the other that everybody was
That's
like,
right. Trying to catch
forget
our breath.
it, you know,
Gotta get it.
let's get it done. Let's get it done. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah.
So I think now we're kind of ready to like, okay, let's take a breather for a moment and let's kind of look together and focus and see what we can do together.
For sure. You know, obviously everyone mentions, you know, the funds, the ESSER funds that are still to come in, the different disaster funding that is still to be spent here. So it's a great opportunity to position our local work to attract those dollars.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity to match dollars. You know, we really do have some good levers right now that we can pull on to be able to create, you know, long-term change for the island and for the archipelago. I'm sorry, I'm trying to correct my language, but yes, for sure. So yeah, it is a moment. I do believe in that. I believe that moments matter, and this is one of them.
Yeah, especially with change in government and everything.
Yes.
So
yeah.
we need to take advantage of it. Beautiful. What motivates you right now? What's in the future that you're like, yes.
Well, I have to say, I just came from a comprometido event, and I'm so fired up to see how, you know, businesses are coming together and getting behind the potential to equip our youth with opportunities here in Puerto Rico for those who choose to stay. But with skills and opportunities that could even translate and transfer to other contexts. I'm really excited about that. I really believe in equipping the, you know, the youth to be here. I'm, you know, you know, I don't think change is bad. I've never thought change is bad, but I think it's bad.
It's inevitable.
It is inevitable, but I think it is not good. Change is not what it could be when everyone is not involved in the change.
Right.
And I think that right now we have an opportunity to help our youth be involved in the change, be able to have access to more, you know, professional salaries, have access to the world through work that happens here. You know, I think as we're attracting businesses to relocate here, it's so important that Puerto Rico isn't seen as the place to hire, you know, your gesture maid and just your maintenance person. Not those things are amazing. Those are the people that raised me and put me through school, and so those are forever valued, you know, roles to play. But also, Puerto Rico is the place to come and hire your executive director, hire your department head. And so I'm very passionate about that. I'm passionate. I grew up in an inner city in New Jersey, Camden. I've watched companies come in and get tax breaks and totally exclude the community they're in and contribute nothing. And so, okay, I have that, you know, fire in me, and I'm seeing an opportunity to correct that here, to be able to open up opportunities that are meaningful, that allow Puerto Ricans to live in Puerto Rico. You know?
And definitely, this is something, I mean, you're getting, you know, I get rallied up with this because I came from, I believe, and again, this is just my perception, but it's kind of where I grew up with. There was a much bigger kind of working middle class, which now we're more, either you got the money or you don't, and the opportunities. And there's these models of, yes, investments from outside and
Yeah.
economía del visitante, and then the locals kind of end just serving
Sure.
whoever comes in. And I'm an engineer. I come from that,
Yeah.
that you had other models, and yes, you hire the engineers, and there's lawyers,
That's right.
and there's more other things, and
Yeah.
there's more creatives and things like that. So I'm glad to know that there are initiatives, and that it's recognized, and there are initiatives also to get back and
That's
say,
right.
hey, there's young people here, they can stay, be professionals, develop however
right.
they want to develop,
Yeah.
either technical or creative or artistic, in
Right.
different ways to
Yeah.
do that.
And some will leave and want to come back. You're in a great
Yeah.
example of that. We
Yeah.
were talking earlier. It isn't bad to leave.
No.
But it's that there's a place if you want to be here. And I know many people would like to be here,
Yeah.
but don't have access.
Or have this as your home base.
That's right. Yeah.
Because you can,
Yeah.
I think we're definitely much more international than we used to
It's
be.
true.
Obviously,
Which I think is so
world
cool.
is more so global,
Yes,
but
that's
you can
right.
be, Puerto Rico, and I go and back, come
That's
back,
right.
and I have my,
But this is
my
home.
exactly.
Yeah.
This is home.
Our aging population, we need our youth here.
Yes.
We need our youth here. And what it means to be Puerto Rico, it will evolve, but we don't want to leave behind the traditions that made Puerto Rico what it is, what brings people,
Right.
And so we need our intergenerational relationships.
Yeah.
And for that, we need for some of our talent to stay here
Yeah.
or be able to come back.
And to keep, I always say, we can't lose our flavor,
Así es funny. Estaba
como
pensando
que-
el sazón, eso mismo, que no se nos pierda. That's right.
No lo podemos perder,
Así
because
es,
that's
así es.
our uniqueness
That's
and
right,
our
that's right,
attractiveness,
that's right.
and that needs to, it can evolve, because obviously it's going to evolve,
Sure.
but we need that intergenerational,
That's right.
so that flavor stays.
That's right.
Which comes with a lot of solidarity and
Yes.
love for each other and love for the island, archipelago, and the whole shebang.
Yeah, for sure. I remember in education talking to families who had come from other countries or maybe from the islands, and I would say to parents, es mejor que usted le lea a su hijo un buen español que un inglés que sea un poquito, half and half,
Yeah.
right? Pero si estás haciendo los pasteles, usa la palabra, no digas la cosa o el coso,
Sí, no hagas el Sesame Street, como que,
mismo,
familia,
no,
pastel. No,
así
do
es.
the whole thing.
Yes, we need that.
Yeah.
That is all a part of the foundation that makes success.
Yeah.
I was in part able to go into agriculture because my mom and my stepdad, when they brought me to Puerto Rico at 6, we lived on a farm, and we engaged in natural
Wow.
living. And so I grew up hearing about, plant-based living and macrobiotics, I think was the term at the time.
I know. I remember.
We used to have-
Eso fue como bien de moda. I was
Así
like,
es. Well, that was me and Luquillo up in Buena Vista Carrión, having full moon parties.
Yes.
That's how
La
I
vianda,
know.
toda la vianda.
No, forget it. But that's how I recognize these projects
Of
today,
course.
because I couldn't point to a word, but I recognized it, And so similarly, experiences, uno necesita un envase en donde depositar.
Yeah.
And we need our families, we need our roots so that we can deposit the new experiences we have and filter them through what is uniquely us.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so nice. I love that.
Okay, I'm happy that works.
So last question I always ask, how can we have a more equitable Puerto Rico?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And how do you feel that you support that through your work?
I guess today, from my point of view, I
Mhm.
don't, there's many
Yeah.
angles, but from my point of view, it really is around salary justice. It's around having salaries that allow Puerto Ricans to live here and live a dignified life.
Yeah.
I have a friend in my faith community here that she has a master's and she makes like $28,000.
Yeah.
It's a mom of 2 children. It's not right. I have relationships with business owners that are needing help and they're doing really good work. but they don't have access to some of the tax credits or other opportunities, where it's just so complicated that they don't have the capacity or bandwidth to engage.
Yeah.
And so I really, and it isn't just Puerto Rico, it's everywhere, you know, it's everywhere. But I think we really need to be intentional about opening pathways so that our talent can rise up. You know, obviously we're all really annoyed about how Puerto Rico was described here recently in the news, but you know, we have to let our talent raise up as well. And we need to do a better job at that. Yeah. Because people will always look to the lowest common denominator. They will always look to something that's deficit. And we have to ensure that the narrative that is coming out of here is around all that is, not what is not, or what is not understood. And so for me, equity right now, particularly where we are in this digital age, you know, it really, because now everyone's moving around, right? And so it's really about helping Puerto Rican talent and that's here. It's not that it's not here. That's the frustrating part. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And so helping that talent come to the forefront and supporting it, I think is so important right now more than ever. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Kinyta.
You're welcome.
And thanks for all you do. Such an honor to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for opening the door for me. You were one of my first, I remember in New Jersey, right before I started the job, Holly was like, well, we're going to be on a Zoom with Philanthropy Puerto Rico. Would you like, I think you were having like a digital, a remote event where you invited people. This was around July of 2020.
Oh my God, was this the despojo that we had the magician?
Yes! Yes! And
that was your first event?
That was my first event! Yes! And I was like, oh my gosh, these are all the people! Yeah. So you never know the impact you're making, Glennie.
And that was like a coming together because we had been in lockdown here since March 16, and it was July, and we took all the membership. We were like 50 in a Zoom call.
It was a large Zoom call.
And then we had Reynold Alexander, El Mago, which he was really good.
It was great. I was so excited. Like I was already excited for the work. So I want you to know you're in other ways, but
great.
One example of your impact that you don't always get to see. And I remember like it really, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to meet these people. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. And we had families and kids and everybody.
You did. That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. We had fun. Yeah.
It was a fun time.
Well, those were interesting times for sure. We opened, it's funny because we opened membership in 2020. And then COVID hit. I'm like, okay, so we're in membership. And I can't connect with people.
We can't meet. Yeah.
This is awesome. Great timing, Glennie. Great timing. But it was good.
Oh, wow. That's great. I didn't know that was what it was. So it's good to know. Yeah.
Right. So thank you. Thanks again for your time and your work and everything that you do. I'm so happy to have you as a resource looking out for Puerto Rico.
Thank you, Glennie.
I feel
the same. Thank you.
And thank you for listening. And if you like this episode, please share it and keep on listening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Adios.